Well, hello. It's Monday morning, which means that it is, what am I? Like a few minutes late, but it's Monday. So there. Um, it's time for relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. And I'm here at the table with some cultists that I've been working on. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up something here. So these are the guys, the cultists that I base coated on Friday. And what I'm going to try to do is put some wash on them to make them look a little less flat and a little more threatening. Okay. And, I'm just looking at the repair that I did, which came out, it's okay. So that's what I'll be doing initially today. And then I've got these guys. These might look a little bit familiar. These cultists are that. So what I'll probably attempt to do is just make these two look like this one, which should be pretty straightforward. There aren't a lot of colors on it. There's, kind of pale flesh tone, red dagger hilt, dark scarlet red belt. I'm trying to remember the colors I use. This probably like neutral gray and medium blue that I used on this, and then put a black wash on it or a dark gray wash. If it doesn't come out looking exactly the same, I guess that's probably okay. They could be similar but not identical. And as I'm looking at this, there's a little bit of a mold flaw on here. The last time I tried to fix one of these, I created a major disaster by breaking off a piece. So we'll see if I can cut this little piece off without like chopping its head off or something. But there's none of the others have this piece of plastic under the chin like this. So I'll take that off. That's pretty good. That's gone. The head's still on. Yeah. So this should be fairly relaxing painting. Let me see what I did, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how I got the inside of that cowl so dark. I don't think I used a different color. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. If these get messed up, well, there's always something else. And then there's this. This is an interesting thing. This is actually a printing. This is a 3D resin printer failure. It is not supposed to look like this at all. I have one that came out okay. This is its head, actually. It has a big mouth, and the tail it's actually this way. It's like upside down. But it came out kind of weird looking, right? I mean, kind of goopy. And anyway, we're going into a sewer. And so I'm going to turn this into some sort of hideous, gooey, emerging sewer slime monster sort of thing. Yeah, anyway, printers are going full speed. We're putting together another set of dungeon tiles. I think these are the street tiles that are pretty cool. We haven't done those before, so sometime in the near future, I'll be painting street tiles again. Not again. I'll be painting street tiles, but not again because I haven't done them before. Can you tell it's Monday morning? I can. Well, I'm going to start by toning down the white flesh tone and the skull features. And I'm going to do that. Usually I would do it with a brown or an umber, but I'm going to try gray, this light gray instead, because I want them to stay kind of ghostly looking. Of course, it's a loud rattling. That was good. So this wash doesn't have very much pigment in it. It's a very light gray color. It'll look a lot darker in the palette here than it actually is, but I'm hoping that it will work on these minifigs. If it doesn't, like if it doesn't give enough color, I can always pull out the umber or the brown and give that a try. Anyway, what I'll be doing today is finishing these up, hopefully. By putting a wash on them and making them look decent, maybe, you know, kind of threatening and sewery and that kind of stuff. Start with the one in front here. It does get into the indentations for like the eyes and the mouth. Do like two. I don't know. It's looking all right actually. I'll do a second coat on it a little bit later, just to give it a little more, well, a little less brightness. Dabbing it on and trying to get it into the depressions, the indentations, like on the face and the hands. Be nice if it were a little darker, but I don't want to use the dark gray on this. I think it would make, I might end up in a very light way if it doesn't. This one tones down. I think that's actually okay. It's coming along okay. Doesn't seem to be taking on much color. The face came out pretty well. That worked pretty well on the face. Like a paint. Like there's a spot that was missed almost. Or it got rubbed off. I'm not really sure. I might put a little dab of that paint on there before I wash them. I'll wash the other one first while that's drying. Just weird, like a little spot, little streak of light color there that the wash might cover or might not. Okay, well, we'll do the same thing to this one. This one seems to have the same sort of issue. I wonder if the paint just didn't cover very well. I'm going to get that really dark red paint out once again. And no, maybe I'll, they're light spots, and although I'm going to be putting a dark wash on them, it might not do what I need to do. Hi, who? Yes, I will do a flip. I had to wait for you, of course. I didn't want to do a flip before you came on. The gray on the flesh tone is working okay. It's giving it, it's keeping a really nice ghostly kind of, don't see the sunlight very often kind of look. Yep. This is the color I'd used, this black-red color. So I'm going to do a little bit of touch-up. There's just little spots everywhere that didn't quite get paint didn't hold or something. I didn't notice those Friday. The same brush, I'm pretty sure I'm not getting any real delicate areas, but take the time to look around. Okay, there's a spot here. Down it here. Okay, if it's a little streaky, because I'm going to wash it and I want it to be streaky then anyway, but okay, well, there were a couple of little spots that weren't clean, weren't covered very well. I need to let that. I'll put another coat of this gray on. Make it any darker. I mean, those are going to be really bright against the dark clothing, but they will just be bright. If I use the dark gray, it would, I mean, if I wanted to puddle up in the indentations, but if I use the dark gray, it would just almost black them out. So if worst comes to worst, I'll put a little bit more on later, but I think that looks okay. Um, Yeah, might as well do the wash now. Do a flip. I forgot. I almost forgot to flip off. Ooh. I'll do this. Hey, thank you. Oh, I really appreciate you coming on and being a follower. I have a little trouble reading the chat because of nearsightedness, but I've got a large screen chat window off to the side there. Every once in a while, I'll remember to go up and look at it. But thanks for joining as a follower, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing here after I do a flip for who. 1, 2, always do 3 flips. 3 flips. There we go. So what I'm doing today is finishing off a couple of stabby cultists that our D&D characters are very likely to be encountering in some sewers that we're almost certainly going to be going into. I'm pretty sure we're going into sewers because I spent about 2 weeks painting sewer tiles, and they're not like sale tiles. They're not tiles that we're going to be trying to sell or anything. So I'm assuming that we'll be using those in the stream. So I'm assuming we're going to be going into the sewer. A little metagaming there because of the relaxing painting. And I've been painting a number of these cultists. These are the latest iterations, and I've got a couple more little guys here who are looking all very solemn. I painted 2 of them earlier. They look like this. And I'll be making these look pretty much like these, pretty much the same. I don't remember the exact colors I used on this, so I'll pick 2 colors that I think are these colors, and if they are, then they'll look like this, and if not, they'll look a little different. So what Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons is mostly about is a stream of the preparation of the minifigs and the dungeon tiles that we use in our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which streams 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Just had one yesterday. And you can catch previous episodes on YouTube or as a podcast. And I play one of the characters, Ulseth Ralph, a Furbog fighter, in the campaign. And the other thing I do is Submarine Wednesdays, which last week turned out to be almost every day because we didn't have these off the rosin printer yet. And I'll be doing that on Wednesday. I'll be continuing to tackle my 1960s vintage Renwall cutaway submarine model, which has been going extremely slowly. And anyway, I haven't destroyed or ruined anything yet. But I came close a couple of times. So as I started painting minifigs and dungeon tiles along with Nicole, who plays another character, Zoya Ansul, a changeling druid, decided to start streaming this as well because sometimes people like to watch this kind of thing, watching paint dry. And I try to keep it relaxing by staying away from controversial topics and focusing largely on who would say 1960s cartoons or television. The last discussion I had wasn't about television shows, it was about 1960s televisions, the things that we actually watched back then. Okay, well, these are dry enough now. I think I can stir up the dark gray and start making these guys look darker. I know we've got an extra mic somewhere. With some of these, we could use like the lavalier mics, the ones that we use that pin on your lapel or collar or whatever. We still have a couple of those around. Who was suggesting that we put a mic on the paint drying so that we can capture the sound of paint drying. And we could clip it. These have bases like this. I think we could use it. It's got like an alligator clip. We could clip it right there while the paint is drying, and we could then pick up the sounds of the paints drying. Then I wouldn't have to, fill in by talking very much because everybody would be listening to that instead. Well, I'm going to start on the chest here. And it's mainly trying to get it on fairly evenly, but to get into the crevices here in the chest armor. Just pick up, get rid of the monotone and pick up some of the detail of the print. Not using terribly much wash on this. I want it to just turn black. I'm going to make the inside of this look a little streaky. Scrape a little bit. Try to get it like in, kind of like that. Just a little splotchy maybe. Okay. That looks pretty decent. Get some up on the hood here, the hood and the cowl. And then I'll do the back of it and see how I can do there. A lot more than I need. Okay, now we're going to do the back. The back is fairly featureless. So what I want to do is get some on here on the dark gray. Get it a little bit uniform in color. And then work on getting it streaky looking, building it up a little bit in the indentations. Kind of flow into the divots. Divots, the insides of the folds. There we go. And now that there's a little bit less on the brush, get the dark red here. A little bit on the blades. So it isn't, you can see that, it's sort of subtle, but it does help, especially on the back here. It makes it a little bit less monotone, a little bit more interesting. I'm not a real expert at this, as you can tell. Um, Nicole is really good at shading. I have no clue how she does it. I don't have that skill. But she is really good at using this kind of thing. There's a little bit of wash and just getting it where it needs to go in the right amount, and making the places you want to look dark, and the things you don't not. As I frequently say on this stream, more often than not, this is a how not to show, because I am neither a skilled model builder nor a skilled painter. My major, the major thing is that I'm usually pretty good about like coloring, keeping it within the lines, kind of. I guess I'll put it that way. Is that yeah, I'm kind of like good at coloring and keeping it in the lines. So like the skulls, okay, don't have blue paint on them, and the leather armor doesn't have white paint on them. Frequently, at least once every stream, we do a negative example. What I mean by that is how not to do it. I have this tendency sometimes to do something that really is, just shouldn't happen. It's not a good thing. And so I can point out to the people who are watching this relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons that what I just did, don't do. If you decide to do this sort of thing, don't do what I just did. So far, that hasn't happened. We've got another, oh my, many hours to go yet. So there's plenty of opportunity, a lot of opportunity yet to have a don't do it this way event. Or as I said, I haven't had a don't do it this way event, but there's usually one. So if you keep watching, odds are really high that you'll be able to catch one of those. Thinking about the stream today, I couldn't think of anything that I wanted to really chat about. So I don't know. Last couple of streams, I got to talk about how cable killed tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of jobs because there were people who installed television antennas. You probably don't know what those are even, but they're big tree-like structures made out of chromed metal that were on everybody's roof. At a neighborhood, and from the roof, you'd be just seeing thousands of these antenna. Okay. Know about the old cartoons. There were, but I don't remember that much about them. Like there was Quick Draw McGraw and his alter ego, Kaboom something. El Kabong, yeah. El Kabong had a guitar that was his weapon, and he kabonged people with it, and it made a bong kind of thing like you would expect. The skull things are just really, really bright yet. I really don't want to use the black wash on them. I'm going to get some more of this light gray wash is still out here. I'm just going to put a little bit more on them. Because I know that the black wash, it'll just change the color way too much. We don't have anything intermediate. Either the gray wash, which is the one I've been using, which gives it kind of a nice, I'll just keep putting more on until the effect is adequate. It's definitely less glaringly light than they were before, so it's having some effect. But between gray and dark gray, there is a huge difference in the amount of pigment. This, if that stays that way when it dries, that's looking okay. These shoulder guys, just there's not enough like surface texture to hold the wash. Especially this little one on the left shoulder here. Okay, I'm going to let those set for, oh yeah, that's another one of those. This is a don't do things. These things have magnets in the base, and when you move them close to each other, magnets, they repel each other. So you can push it around like that. It's, magic. But one time I set it down right next to it, and the other one went flying and broke off an arm, and it was, need to be a little cautious about that. Okay, cap that up. So these cultists don't have very many colors, like 5, I guess. I'm going to start. I usually start by doing the hands and the faces, because then I know where they are. There's some more of those little support string things. There, see them? I don't know if you can see them right here. Those are leftovers from the 3D printing. So who is the music playing? So if I don't talk for a little bit, is there at least that going on? Yeah, I did a routine about Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear is always in the ranger's hair. If you have a picnic table, you will find him there because Yogi Bear is smarter than the average bear. I'm not sure. I mean, that's kind of its catchphrase. Yogi Bear is. That's it. The music isn't playing again. Okay. One of these days, somebody who knows what they're doing will come down and make it work. I even turned it on and turned it off. There's a little technical difficulties this morning that I thought I mostly had fixed. Like the camera on my face was frozen. That probably would have been okay. Getting the music. Yeah, it does. There was definitely a Windows update between Friday and now because just a whole bunch of this almost nothing was really working when I turned it on this morning. So I've watched a couple other streaming shows and I've noticed how the production value of this particular one is really primitive. You know, the basically you've got a camera pointing down that mostly oftentimes I am able to keep on camera. I've got this cardboard. Maybe during break I'll do something about. No, maybe Friday. So you notice like the work surface here just gets pretty messy. Well, just let's do a digression. We have to have a digression. So we had this work surface here was painted really light gray, and it was reflecting the light too much. When we started doing the streaming, and so our production manager, who's also the DM, who's also a technical wizard here, said, "Why don't we paint it charcoal gray? It'll give it a nice uniform dark background against which you can work." And it's not that bad. It is. But as you can see, it didn't stay nice dark gray. Might actually be time to take all of this stuff off the workbench and repaint it. So we tried a plastic tray and it reflected the lights really badly, so you couldn't see anything other than the ring lights. And so I said, well, let's do high-tech stuff. I got out a piece of cardboard. Well, the really cool thing about a piece of cardboard like this is that there's two sides to it. So this one's really bad. I noticed that on Friday. So I'm going to, this is pretty cool, exciting here. Look, we have now a new clean, almost pristine work surface. That was pretty magical, wasn't it? I wonder how long it'll take before this becomes just as messy as the other one. But I do know that we frequently have cardboard, and we can make new ones whenever we want. This will be fun to paint. I'm going to paint the bases on these just to get them done. I remembered what color we use on the base of the models because I wrote it down and made a note of it. So maybe during break, I can get someone to come down and take a look at what's going on with the sound. I hope it's recording. We have I pushed all the buttons I usually push, to get this thing started this morning, and pretty much got going. It says it's been recording now for 41 minutes and 56 seconds, so I'll believe it. Okay. For some reason, that vortex thing doesn't. I used to have more buttons to push. I've got like 4 buttons to push now. Alexis decided that I was not a competent button pusher. So there used to be like maybe 8 or 9 buttons on this Stream Deck that I could potentially push. Now there are 4. That's down from 5. Okay, I've got a push number 1. It's got a 1 on it, so that I remember to push that one first. It's almost insulting. The reduction in number of buttons, but whatever. This is, the stream starts in the morning, and you'd say, yeah, well, it's 10 in the morning. It's not very early, is it? But it's still morning. So there's one that says number 1, so that's the one I push first. And that one does the stream starting soon screen. And then there's the one next to it, one over, that I push that actually gets the stream started, the kind of introduction thing where the camera is scrolling for a few, like maybe 20 seconds or 15 seconds before this shows up. There's another one that says end stream. I'm supposed to push that when I want to finish, right? That's the end stream. Now, the one that I used to have a button that said start break, and another one that said end break. Now there's just one button. It's very clever. It says start break, and when you push it, the label on it changes to end break. I guess the advantage of that was that I couldn't push the end break button instead of the start break button to start the break. I don't remember that I ever messed that up. Yeah, I think we should have some buttons they don't necessarily even have to do anything, right? They can just be buttons that I can push. I can, if something's happening. Oh, I know. It could be kind of fun. I'll ask Alexis to do this. Is to have like an O button. So when it's one of those times when something goes wrong, like old TV shows and things kind of almost had this. It would be almost like having a special effect, except it wouldn't be all that special. Oh, I don't know. Okay, so this would be the O button. It would be when something goes wrong, because something almost always does, right? That always does happen. It always happens that something goes wrong. I would have a button I could push, and the scene would change just for like maybe 5 seconds or something. It could be like a little kid dropping something, or well, this is really jammed on here. Okay, why I'm messing with this is that if the sticky tack gets up around the edges too far, the edges don't get painted. Okay, so yeah, so I push the O button, and there'd be this little picture of like spilled milk, right, or something that would be an O moment. It shouldn't happen. Kind of like the Macaulay Culkin Home Alone screaming face, the hands. That'd be kind of amusing, wouldn't it? So when something went, wrong, and it was a "don't try this at home" kind of moment, I could reach up and push that button. What other buttons? I've got there's like room for 11 more buttons here. If I can be trusted with them, which I can't be, because that's why I've only got 4. Because one time I pushed the wrong button and it didn't record or something horrible like that. Although I swear I did it right. I don't swear on this on this stream because it's relaxing, but in a kind of metaphorical sense, or in kind of a legalistic sense or something, I would swear that I had pushed the right button. But no, apparently it was a mistake. And it didn't record, and it required all sorts of work on the part, post-production work or something to fix. Anyway, yeah, I can't even be trusted to push the start brake and end brake buttons. So I just have one that changes from one to the others. So I can either, if I start it, the only thing I can do is end it. And if the brake isn't on, the only thing I can do is start it. Yeah. But there are many other buttons. Good grief. How did, that's one of those. See, that would be an O. I would push the O button. It's like, how did I get that on my hand? I have no clue how it got there. It's one of the rules of relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons is if there is wet paint somewhere, it will get onto my hand. I think even if it has to leap from one place to another, even if it has to like jump a foot and a half, 18 inches, it will get from where it is to my fingers. And not all the time, but frequently, it will actually leap from my fingers onto a previously painted surface. But yes, I need more buttons, and the OO button could be a good one. I'm sure Alexis could set it up so that it would do some sort of OO thing, and we could even change it from time to time so it wouldn't be the same OO. There might be like 4 or 5 that would randomly select one. And it wouldn't do anything else. That's the only thing it could possibly do. And it would be time limited so that it would do the OO, okay, get the OO out of the way, and then it would just stop on its own without having me to push another button that says stop OOing. I'm sure I could not be trusted with a start OO and stop OO button. Anyway, I am going to put some brown wash on these. The point of that is to just make it, give it a little bit of texture. And this one's dry enough. It's not fully dry, but I want the wash to kind of settle into the paint anyway. The other one's taking a long time to dry. Oh. Anyway, yeah. An OO button. What else? This is an opportunity for people in chat or on social media later or whatever to chime in with whatever kind of buttons you think I could potentially be trusted with. Noting that it doesn't necessarily have to be functional. Slotting this on because I want it to be non-uniform. If I put more gray wash on the skull things, I think I might put a little bit more on. They don't look bad. You can see how the wash managed to catch and highlight the depressions, the eye sockets, and the mouths and things. Well, maybe I'll just leave them alone. A counter button. Well, it could be that kind of counter button, where if I pushed it, it started counting for a reason, I don't know. Or it could be a button on a counter, like a shelf. And I could push that and it would show a picture of a shelf or a counter. That sounds pretty doofus, doesn't it? But, it could be. So while I'm waiting for the base of this to dry, I don't mind if it's a little bit wet, but that needs to dry just a little bit longer before I put the brown wash on. So what I'm doing, as I'd mentioned, this was a misprint that is going to turn into a hideous sewer slime monster. But this has turned out to be like a base with really sharp edges. And I'm filing it down to make it look like a tail. Okay. So I'll put a tail side up. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to do a little bit more contouring. I'm putting that on my pants because this generates a lot of fine plastic dust that has to come out in the wash. Yeah, a counter that doesn't really that shows an image of a counter, or that we could do counter puns. It could be, they could have a big N on it, or an N could flash, and every time the N flashed, it would count by one. You know what that would be then, right? That would be an N counter. Yeah, I don't think I can top that. I better just stop right there. That's the next time Nines does hideous laughter. I know sometimes it's hard to come up with a really awful joke. You would think that really awful jokes would be easy to come up with compared to like good jokes that would provoke hideous laughter. But it is hideous laughter after all, so it makes sense that the joke that would provoke it would be hideous. But you could use the N counter uh, joke for hideous laughter. I'll have to try to remember that. I should put that on the warm-up list. Yeah, it is. It's hard to be funny. That's why I don't think anything on the stream is a stream ever funny. Probably just like by its very nature. No, this is off screen. Yeah. Here I am filing away, making a little plastic dust all over the place, creating a mess, and you're not even getting to see me make the mess. Yeah, that's better. So yeah, for one of our warm-ups, if you go to patreon.com/dice and dungeons, patreon.com/dice and dungeons, you get the opportunity to become a patron. And if you in fact become a patron, you get access to our warm-up sessions, which are like, you go to an improv kind of comedy club. It's kind of like that, except way better, because we're just we're very clever and funny and things like that. So yeah, it's like a really good improv comedy club, except that you don't have like a 3-drink minimum or whatever. I mean, you can if you want impose your own drink minimums. You can do that. No one's stopping you because it's, we can't see you. But if you go to patreon.com/dice and dungeons and become a patron, then you get access to our warm-up sessions, our improv warm-up sessions, many of which are really quite funny because, we're just that good and talented. Anyway, you should do that. And then one of the improv sessions, and I think we should put this on our list of potential improvs, is coming up with jokes for Nines to use when they cast hideous laughter. You think? Yeah, do that, please. If you're a follower or a subscriber, you can go to the next level. There. Now it doesn't look quite like it's a squared off thing. You can go to the next level of helping us continue our Dyson Dungeons by going to patreon.com and getting access to our improv sessions. I remember during break maybe, or after the stream, maybe I'll go to our Discord channel and put that down as one of our warm-up session ideas, which is to come up with jokes for Nines to use for Tasha's hideous laughter. You know, there's you're sitting there, and frequently our bard, Nines is our bard. I play a warrior, so I'm up in front getting beat up usually, taking damage and flailing away, oftentimes rolling a 2 or a 3 on my attack roll. Anyway, yeah, oftentimes Nines is the most effective member of our party by doing crowd control, frequently using Tasha's hideous laughter and forcing our adversary into convulsive laughter that means that they can't do anything on their turn other than trying to stop laughing. Yeah. So a counter button. Did you like the end counter? Mm-hmm. Counterproductive, counter. You have to come up with, now we have to come up with counter puns. Okay, well, is today dragging along or what? No, these guys are done. I'm going to declare them finished. And so I am going to let them dry just a little bit and then pry them off of the sticky glue tack here and put these on. Going to start by painting their faces and hands. And then I'm going to paint the red hilts, the tiny little bits of red hilts that show of the dagger. There, and there. Then I'm going to paint the cowl and hood. I think I'll paint the sash, the red sash, before I paint the robe. And the robe is the same color all throughout. Like I said, there aren't that many colors on these guys. Six. I guess 6 is not that many compared to some. Anyway, yeah, now I need to get these off. Put them away. No, suggestion really saved our butts a couple of times, but Tasha's hideous laughter, I think it might have failed like once out of 8 or 10 times that Nines has tried it. It's really been very effective. And the crowd control has saved my life many times as I play also Ralph the football fighter. Because usually there's more than one adversary, and I can really only take on one at a time. And so if I get swarmed, like if there's three or so, it can get pretty nasty. Okay, let's see. The way I did these is I actually used a brown wash on the face and the hands. And so to keep the color consistent, I'll do the same thing too. Used ivory with a brown wash, tried to keep it really, really light. So let's do that first. Let's paint the hands and the face. And then the dagger, the hilt, maybe even the blade, and then the sash cord, the little cords sash. Oh, I did that one really quite well. Sometimes I'm just really surprised that things turned out okay. Let's see. I'm going to use a little bitty brush for this because I have to get in and around there. Brush. No, that. Some new brushes. Maybe I'll use the new brush just to do it. It's really fine tipped brush. Let's see how this works. Mixing this, I'm trying to decide. Paint this. This is a slimy monster. I think it almost has to be like greens and blues, maybe with a little like yellow or orange on these little protuberances there. Might even try to paint some stripes on it if I can get some colors that would be kind of stripy, and then wash it with the gray wash, the dark gray wash probably. So let's try this brush. I tried using this once before, and it was okay. I don't have to be extremely precise because I'll be painting colors back over it. Doing an adequate job of coverage. I think the problem I've had with this is that the bristles are really long. Often, so it's much gets the paint where I want it, but it doesn't give really good control when I try to push the paint up into an unpainted area. Oh yeah, let's talk about buttons. So it's not really a joke. It's just saying that has been bouncing around in the family for a long time. Go, so what? So buttons. No, be modern, use zippers. And what do you think about that? That's how, that's how you deal with a conversation when somebody goes, so what? Sure, that would be very useful for some of our viewers. You can feel free to use that. It's not copyrighted. Yeah. So what? So buttons. No, be modern. Use zippers. There you go. That's your retort. Oh, yeah, we need a retort button. Oh, two buttons. We need a tort button and a retort button. I think those are buttons that really should do anything. You know, if someone says something in the chat, you could retort by just pushing the retort button. That would be almost as good as like Chat GPT, right? Probably maybe even better. We have a shirt button. If we're putting buttons on the Stream Deck here, we could have a counter button, an end counter button, and we could have a shirt button. And whenever I pushed it, it would flash, just quickly flash a picture of a shirt. Maybe highlighting the button. So that could be a highlight of the show too. That in addition to doing a flip, which is something that tradition that started at the start of every stream, is there's a flip. We could have a button push. So it'd be flip, 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 and then it could also be push the button. You have to have buttons to push when that time came around. Okay, well, now there's this kind of ghostly white hands and face. And got, yeah, figuring out how to use it a little better. Paint in. I might try using it on the hilt of the dagger just to see how it works. Spent a lot of money on this brush, twice as much as some of the other brushes. So, you know, you would think that it would be a good brush. He cleans her brushes in a totally different way. I have to watch her sometime to see how she does it. I think she just sort of like dips them or dabs them. Might be more effective. I can't paint the hilts of the daggers yet because the that is right up against this ivory colored paint that needs to dry. I can paint the belt, the rope, the sash rope. I can do that next. That's this. Just bang the camera. This Scarlet Red. Let's see how this works. I thinned. There is a fair amount of paint left in this bottle, but it became very congealed, and so I put a whole bunch of thinner in it. Got a nice little mixing ball in there, so it's stirring it up. And we'll see how it works. If it's too thin, it's going to run all over the place. I mean, it's thin enough to use now, that's for sure. I can keep using this brush just to see how I do with it. Again, I don't have to be exceptionally careful with this because I'll be painting up to it from both the top and the bottom, which is good because I was getting a nice line there. Brush slipped and made a mess. This brush works pretty well for this kind of thing. Consistency of the paint is okay. It's good. Nice fine line with that. So if my hand is somewhat steady, which it sometimes is, be able to start using this brush, I think, with some, some effectiveness in the future. I think I used it just once before, and it wasn't working quite the way I needed it to, for whatever reason. But like painting down onto the color of the robe, that would have actually gone really quite well. But when I'm painting the hilt of the dagger, which will require very fine detail, I'm going to use this brush again and see how it goes. Okay, we'll do the other one. Yeah. So we're talking about what, buttons? Something with the stream. I think what we're talking about is how I wasn't trusted to have buttons. I couldn't even be trusted to have a start and stop button for the brake. I just got one button that if I push it, it starts it, and if I push it again, it stops it, so that I can't get it wrong. You would think that I could get it in the right order, that I would know if I'm starting or stopping a break, right? Anyway, yeah, one of those error prevention kind of things. But I like the idea of having an OO button. So like when I stick my finger in the wet paint kind of thing, like I did a little while ago, I could push the OO button and I'd get like 5 seconds. So OO meme popping up on the screen. If this were a little later in the day, well, it is, if you're watching it from Europe, it is later in the day. It's not 10 in the morning when it starts. You could even make a drinking game out of it. Like every time there was an OO that popped up on the screen, you'd have to have a drink. And it's not like I have a lot of OOs, but the stream does go on for 4 hours, so there's plenty of opportunity for one or more to occur. So I know, it'd probably take the better part of 18 hours of development time or something. If I mentioned it, Alexis would feel obligated then to try to make it happen and would get all grumpy because she was spending 3 days creating an effective OO. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think, always do that. This is a don't do this. Okay. If you want to see your paint is dry, stick your finger on it. Don't do that. That was another one. That was one of those. Don't do it the way I just did it if you're really going to be good at paint. So I'm going to use this little fine tip brush. It seems to be pretty much working, and I'm going to use it to paint the hilts of the daggers, which are red, but it's a different red than the red of the rogue cord. So an OO button would be doubly good, okay, because the Stream Deck, in order to reach the Stream Deck, I have to get up and reach over. And reaching across a workbench which has not been kept clean, like mine isn't. It's all covered with all sorts of things from like Submarine Wednesday, and I was doing some furniture repair yesterday. So it'd be especially good to reach over to hit the OO button and knock something over. And maybe there could be like an OO extreme for the times when I not only did an OO, but the hitting of the OO button itself created an OO. Yeah, I think we're onto something here that would make relaxing painting with dice and dungeons somewhat more interesting than it already is. I'm going to petition to get an OO button. I'm going to get the red down actually onto the blade a little bit here as I'm painting up from the bottom. That's okay because the blade will be painted later. All these things where I can't tell if that's just the shininess of wet paint. The paint is actually not going where I want it. I'm just going to keep poking at it with this red paint. I'm pretty sure that what I'm looking at there is that it was just wet paint. Too bad there's no music, because if I'm quiet, then there's nothing going on. I'll have to ask if they can get the music started again. I've been told that can actually be done without coming down to the studio. That they can Spotify. I think Spotify is what plays the music. That can be done from any computer on the internet. Anyway, during break, I'll let Super Tech support know that the music wasn't playing, and maybe it'll start up again after the break. And I'll be able to, I'll know how to start and end the break by pushing the start break button, which will then turn into an end break button, so that when I come back down and push the same button, I'll be ending the break. Yep. There. That's how you can sort of see the red there. That's how the hilt of the dagger works. Doing here, there's a half hour yet before I can reasonably take a break. Yeah, I think I'm going to use the other brush, the other fine tip brush, and start painting the cowl. I need to get the paint in down in around the face, so it's kind of a delicate thing, and then back behind the hands and the dagger. And once those are done, those little bits there and there, then the rest of it I can actually use a larger brush, because it's not in contact with anything. And if I get it a little bit further down here, that's okay, because the robe will cover it. And what did I do? I think I said I used medium blue, which is a little bit lighter blue color, but it's the color that we use for our stone with the black wash. Yeah, if I use the field blue, it'll just look black. As I'm doing this, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to get that long tip brush back out again. Because I think I'll be able, if I just put a little bit of paint on the tip of it, I should be able to reach down into those areas behind the face. So let's give that a go. So just a little bit of paint on the tips there. So what I'm trying to do is get it onto the cowl face. Put my head magnifiers on for this. This is an example of one of those skill level 2 things being done by a skill level 1.5 painter. So we'll see. This is one of those things that looks good from one side. Yeah, that's not bad. The face is supposed to kind of be like ghostly floating in the cowl there, and it's doing that. You probably can't see it because it's far away from the camera, and maybe my head's in the way even. But I'm trying to get the paint down into this little crevice on the inside of the cowl. That Okay. I don't remember the other one being, when I did the other two, I don't remember them being quite so delicate a process. Anyway, it's getting done without having done an, I haven't done an OO on it yet. So we got that going for it. So far, there's been no OO. Okay. That's just the cowl around the face. I'm going to do the other one like that with a little brush. Trying to do the same thing here. Use the bigger brush to finish it off. And there'll be another delicate part getting around the hands there when I do the gray of the main cloak. Well, as I'm learning how to use this new brush, it's actually pretty good for detail. It's just the technique is a little bit different than the other one because the other one has very short bristles. Gives really pretty good control. Especially for a fine line. It's not good for a larger surface. Little dots of paint and things is pretty good. I might on the submarine. There are hatchways, these metal hatches that go from one section of the submarine to another, and they have a window in them, and the window consists of an infinitesimally small little dot, an indentation. And I successfully painted one before by putting, I think I used even a toothpick or something, but I think this brush will work. I can put a tiny bit of what is called chrome paint. See what I did with this one. Yeah, I got rid of the neck. This little bit of neck that's showing is, I'm going to paint that in, and then the face looks like it's just kind of floating inside the cowl. I think I could use this brush to put that tiny little dot of chrome paint in to make it look like the window of the hatch. He's pretty good at putting tiny little dots of paint down. Painting long, thin lines. Yeah. I can use a larger brush to finish these off. I can use this brush and then just go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'll do what I was working on before. I don't have to be extremely careful down around the bottom. I want to make sure the paint gets under the edge of the cloak. Because I'll be painting up to it with the gray paint later. So this is intentionally overpainted onto the next surface. Using the paint in the bottle cap so as not to waste it, but it's a very thin layer in the bottle cap there, so it just starts setting up and becomes rubbery. Okay, well, you can start to see how this begins to look then. Once I get, the sides of the sleeves there, then the messiness of the hands will disappear. The floating face is working okay. Yeah, other one, same color. Since I should have had something to eat morning. I usually don't feel like eating much in the mornings, and so I don't. And then it gets to be about this time of the day, and yeah. So that needs to dry before I do the gray because of where it is in contact around that. What I can do then before the break, paint the blades of the daggers. I don't want to use steel. That's really dark. I want to use either dark aluminum or duraluminum. I can always make it darker. I'll use this. Yeah, I figured these would come along pretty quickly because they're not very complicated. This requires a tiny little drop. These metallic paints are made for airbrushing, so they're very thin, and a little bit goes a very long way. Um, I suppose. Okay, well, what I did was I painted the sash. Look at that. Well, that'll give me something to do. That was actually pretty incredibly doing it again. Okay. Obviously, this brush goes way further than I expected it to. I thought it would be small enough, but no. So I'm going to have to get out the scarlet red paint again and touch up those. Well, actually, I'm just going to wait because there's a chance that when I paint these cloaks and paint up to the red, that I might have to do red touch up anyway. So I'm going to touch that up when I do the touch up after painting the cloaks. Okay. So what I'm going to do now while this is drying, and so after the break, I'll be getting out the little brush again, and we'll be doing, real careful around the arms and real careful around the bottoms of the cowl here, and real careful around the rope sash. And after I'm done being careful, then I'll get like this brush, which is not obviously a not careful brush, and paint the rest of the robe. And after that's dry, I can do the gray wash. So while I'm waiting for that to dry in the next 5 minutes before break, what I'm going to do though is pull out my color chart. And I've got this blob monster thing. I'm going to see what kind of colors I've got. We've got some of these pearlescents, which are kind of like the black pearlescent. These are actually gloppy. They're very viscous, but they work really as well as a wash. So I could use and make it shiny, kind of like shiny as in slimy. I could use the black. I could use the navy. I could use this dark green. Well, let's see what kind of colors. Tempted to go with kind of blues. I think I'm going to make this kind of blue rather than green. If it really ends up looking bad, like really dumb, I can always just reprime it. But what if I put a dark green slimy wash on it? And maybe some black slimy wash on it. And did the undercoats in like this blue-green and turquoise, kind of make it maybe even striped, kind of green and turquoise. And then this part here, we could actually do in kind of a reddish and use the red copper on it. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the blue greens and the turquoises and then use the slimy wash, the green on it to see how that might go. And in this part back here, I'm going to paint clear orange. During break, I'm going to get those paints out. It's going to look really odd until well, it's just going to look weird anyway. That's the whole point, is for it to be looking weird. So it will. Weighing on me. The bristles aren't coalescing. They're kind of fraying out a little bit. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. When I get back, these will be dry. I'll get the little brushes out and paint all of the contact areas for the neutral gray cloak. And then when that's dry or close to it, I'll get the dark red back out again and fix this mess I made with the metallic. And then if I need to, I can do a touch up with the other colors. And then we'll let that dry while I start messing around with this thing. And then I'll probably be able to get the wash on. It'll probably, it'll take like a half hour to get the gray on at the pace that I go. But that'll give it a good half hour, 45 minutes to dry before I need to put the wash on before the end of the stream today. I'm going to push my start break button, which will magically then turn into a end break button to remind me to push the same button, because as we've been talking about it, I'm not trusted with buttons, but now I need more buttons. Yep, pushing that button. Here we go. See you in about 25 minutes. Well, I successfully pushed the one button that I'm allowed to push. The break is over. And now I'm going to be putting neutral gray paint on the rest of this. Hopefully getting as little as necessary in places I don't want to get it. That's always the thing, isn't it? And then I'm going to set these aside to dry. I need to use this to hold the blob monster while I paint that while the gray paint is drying. So I'm going to pull them off by the base. Anyway, yeah, gray paint time. So let's get that going and see what happens. This tiny brush. Yeah, we were talking about buttons. Not sure why, but we were. And whether or not I'll ever be allowed to have more than the number of buttons that I've got now. My guess is that probably not. That I'm not going to be trusted with more buttons, but it would be fun. Decided it would be fun to have an OO button that I could push when something went wrong, which happens, not every stream, but with some regularity. The like this, it was a minor thing this time. It was I got brown paint on my fingers somehow when I was painting the bases. Unsure how that happened, but I did. And that was a minor but unambiguous moment, which could have given rise to pushing the button, which I'm sure would have had, a humorous kind of meme thing. Button might be the only kind of button that I'd be allowed to have, in addition to the few that I have on my Stream Deck now. We can, as I'm getting this gray paint on here, probably, if you want, we could continue a monologue about access to buttons. But I understand that the music isn't playing, which means that if I'm not saying anything, you're not hearing anything. I suppose that would be okay. I mean, quietude is relaxing. So that could be part of the relaxing painting bit. This is supposed to be relaxing painting with dice and dungeons. Today is fairly relaxing because the things I'm painting are not as challenging as the minifigs I did last Friday, or definitely not as challenging as the infinitesimal pieces of the submarine that I'd been working on over the last several weeks. When I got back to the minifigs on Friday, I was, I usually complain about how small they are and what a challenge it is to get the paint into all the little nooks and crannies and details and this, that, and the other thing. But I realized that compared to the submarine pieces, they are large. And yeah, so compared to the submarine, especially this one is fairly relaxing because there aren't too many colors, and the boundary areas, like the one I'm painting here between the cloak and the the rope belt. They're not terrible, not terribly difficult. An easy thing like painting the blade of the dagger, I decided I just grabbed the brush that was just way too big, and that was the biggest OO. Well, the entire stream today was just, the moral of that story is don't use a big brush because it'll get painted, slapped around everywhere. Yeah, and that's what happened. Anyway, that was an I've had two OO moments. That was the biggest OO moment. That surpassed the OO moment of getting brown paint on my finger. Which was kind of an OO, but I didn't get it on anything else, so it became just a minor OO because it would have been a major OO if I had then touched something and gotten brown paint all over that. Okay, so I've got the sleeves here. In rotating it. Rotating it's always important because otherwise you find out that there are places that didn't get painted. I mean, not that that they just didn't get painted at all. No, I'm just looking at the sleeves here, and the paint should come down. There was some closer to the hands, but so don't want to just I just don't want to provoke another OO moment. But I have decided that after the conversation with who, that it definitely need to petition for an OO button. And it would be clearly labeled OO, so I wouldn't confuse it with something like start break, right? Folks wouldn't have to be worried about me getting like totally confused and pushing it terribly inappropriately. I'm still able to recognize OO moments when they occur. Now there was one. There's an OO moment. We got the paint up trying to reach down inside here to get the paint in there. I managed to owe it right onto the dark of the cowl. There are a couple of spots that need to be touched up anyway. I noticed on the other one where the paint maybe bubbled up a little bit or something in a way so that so it didn't cover. And as a result, it needs a tiny bit of that dark blue in the bottle, actually just medium blue paint touch up. So I'll be able to fix my OO here. Get out again. There's a spot there. You know, just some little spots that didn't get covered completely when I painted them. This color is really close to the color of the primer, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It makes it easy to kind of miss a spot. The upside is that if I miss a spot, it doesn't show very much. Good excuse, though. Anyway, you know, we're getting the sleeves darker gray, medium gray. Paint around the bottom of the belt here and around the edges. Once I'm done outlining the bottom of the rope belt here, or lining it, I guess I should say, then I can get a larger brush out and finish the bottom of the robe. Yeah, there I got a little bit of gray. The brush slipped. I don't know if you noticed that I did it with. There's a ridge on the back of the robe there, and the brush caught on it. And then put a little spot of gray paint on. But that's supposed to be red. But I need to get the red out again to fix all of the mess that I made when I painted the blade. Okay, yeah, getting there. Clean this off and get the larger brush and finish the robes. And then I'm going to set all that aside. Well, I should be able to get a little bit of red touch up. It gets much darker when it dries. You can see the difference between the wet and the dry paint in terms of color. So it becomes much more obvious as it dries whether I missed any spots or not. So as I rotate this, as I'm painting the bottom of the robe, I'll be checking out the sleeves. Areas that might have been missed. Now I'm going to pull out that scarlet red, which is the color of the rope belt, and a little bitty brush, and do the necessary touch up on where the silver from the blade got all over it. Then I'm going to take these off the stands and let them dry before I put the dark gray wash on them. And then there's a brown wash, a really, really fine, I mean, just a couple of drops, less than a drop, not even a drop, a minuscule amount on the hands and the face, just to bring out the detail of like the fingers and the eyes and stuff. Yeah, same spot on both of these for the same reason. Little spot that needs to be red on the belt. As the brush caught on that little bit of a protuberance there. And that led to the brush jumping. Call it that. And spotting the belt. Okay. I think there were a couple of spots of the darker blue too. I'm trying to remember where they were. Where the paint got up on the shoulder. Maybe this one? Is it the other one? Maybe I can't even see where it is anymore. Well, there's a spot on the top that needs to be touched up. Yeah. Okay. So I need to do the dark blue touch up as well. that first because it's not near anything else that's it's wet. It's going to have to be denatured alcohol. This brush is holding a lot of paint. It isn't coming out with the water. It'll just stiffen the bristles later. I'll deal with that later. This one, I'm just going to hand mix it. It's not using like a dot of it here and there. That's good. Yeah, shook it up that way. Got it all with the rim so that it will congeal all over the top of the bottle. That was an oh moment. It was a minor oh moment, but an oh moment nonetheless. So we would have had 3 oh, 2 minor and 1 major during the stream today if I had access to an oh button. It would be good to have, maybe I need to have 2 oh buttons, a big oh and a little oh. The buttons would be the same size because on the Stream Deck, all the buttons are the same size, but I could have like a small print oh and a big print oh. Then I would know if I were oh-ing large or small. So today I've had 2 small and 1 large oh. Done fixing the red here. Just again, I'm looking at little dots of fixation. I'm going to put a base coat on this oozing inadvertent slime monster thing. This was a failed print on the rosin printer, but it looks really kind of cool. And since we're going into a sewer, why not, right? Let's do the fixing of the sash under the blade first. This consists of making the spots that are silver red again. Without making the spots that are gray red when they shouldn't be. Okay, those are the touch-up areas that were obvious. Spot on the back that isn't obvious, that you probably wouldn't even notice, but I know it's there, like right there. And then I did the same thing to the other one, of course, learning nothing from my mistake. I repeated it. The quantity is a little bit less, but the effect is the same. And then on the back of this, there is the same thing in the same spot for the same cause. Okay. Got the red back where it belongs. And these are ready for wash after that dries a little bit. But okay. So I'm gonna spend however much I can get done in 30 or 35 minutes base coating the weird little sewer slime monster thing. Okay. And what I decided to do is I'm going to be painting most of it. It'll look odd, but after I put the wash on it, the pearlescent wash, it'll look okay. We'll find out. Take these off. Give it a try. Put this guy on. I'm going to paint it kind of a stripy pattern, kind of a globby stripy pattern. Blue, green, and turquoise, two very nice colors that seem inappropriate, but if I have a dark green, you want a post break flip, I can do that. I haven't flipped one of these in a while. Flip this problem. There we go. No, these might seem inappropriate for a slime monster, but I think that once I give it that pearlescent wash, which is supposed to make it look slimy, that will look good. This is going to have some orange details, like this bit where it's just coming out. It's almost like a snail coming up. It will be kind of orange. And then there's this little frill around here. I'm going to paint that kind of orange too. And then these little things up here, these little spines, will be a darker red. I'm not going to use a lot of colors on this. But anyway, we'll see how it looks. I'm going to put the lighter color on first. There's a little mixing ball in there and I don't hear it. And I'm almost tempted to use the really large brush on it. I think I will. just to get the paint spread around and kind of rough in some stripy looks. Like I said, I'm going to kind of make it look stripy with the other bluish greenish paint. And if the edges of the stripes are a little bit, you know, it's kind of almost kind of the look I'm looking for, is that the edges of the stripes are a little fuzzy. Okay, even if some of the gray primer shows through, colors are supposed to be kind of oozy. Well, the parts that are gray are going to be kind of filled in, again, in sort of a splotchy way, with a darker blue-green color. This bit here, just so that there is some contrast for a reason, is going to be painted orange. Yeah, I mean, there we go. Yeah, it's pretty weird, isn't it? Looking forward to that battle. I wonder what kind of abilities that Alexis will, if we run into it in the sewers, because it's kind of a sewer thing, right? If we run into it in the sewer, I wonder what kind of abilities it will have. It will no doubt be nasty. I have to say that since we've leveled up, the battles have become much more intense. Like you run into this mage for some reason, I don't know why. Among the cultists, there's a magician that casts fireball. Of course, everybody has to cast fireball. That half kills half of our party. And then I get up close in melee range and, hit most of the time, but manage to, like, a almost but not quite critical miss. Lovely. And then, yeah, so what bad could happen? I got almost electrocuted. Yeah, I just cleaned the brush, but there was a bad brush mark there. That hardly seemed fair. Fortunately, I hit pretty hard the next time and decapitated the magician. You know, things just pop up in sewers. This is a sewer thing. That's what it is. It's a sewer thing. Okay, let's put the darker blue on. And again, I'm going to be filling in the areas that are gray with this darker blue green, but not necessarily trying to be precise with it. I want them to kind of blend together. The I mean, it's a sewer slime gross thing. So, oh my, this happened before where the paint didn't mix, but I'm just going to mix it here and start just putting it on. You might say, what's going on here? This is, and that would be a good question. The answer is it is a thing that is in the sewers because there's sewers and there are things in the sewers. And this is one of those things that is in the sewers that we might encounter in our D&D campaign, or maybe we won't. That's up to the DM, who has, these amazing powers over what happens in the campaign. That's why they're called DMs or dungeon masters, because they are masters of the dungeon. What can you say? That's what the words mean. If this weren't such a cruel monster, I'm sure it will be. I don't know. It might not be. This might be, this could be a good guy. This could be like a psychic. Has psychic powers. That's what's going to happen. Is we'll be down in the sewers, finding our way, getting into trouble, that kind of stuff, right? Because that's it. And then this thing will just emerge. It'll have psychic powers, so it can communicate with us, and it will become like our guide and NPC protector. that's almost certainly what's going to happen, right? But these colors are close enough together that there'll be a little bit of subtlety in the patterning that will show up under the pearlescent that is slimy. That's the effect I'm going to be going for. I'll wash that's going to go over it. Well, one thing about using a bigger brush like this is that it covers things fairly quickly. So this is getting the really highly detailed. There, kind of nice and splotchy. And since it's just a slimy, weird, gross, nobody knows what it is, you can't say that it's wrong, right? You can't say that I did it wrong because nobody knows what it is. Oh, hi, Raiders. Thanks for joining in. Yeah, thanks for explaining. Thanks for explaining that the music isn't working, the background music. We will get that fixed, I'm sure, for the stream on Wednesday. And I'm continuing. This is hard to explain. This was a misprint on the rosin printer, but since we're going into a sewer, it became why not make it a thing that we might encounter in a sewer. So this is a thing now that we don't know what it is or what it does or why, that may or may not be used by our DM when we get into the sewer, which we are almost certainly going to do because we spent a week and a half painting sewer tiles. Yeah, so there's that. It's kind of nice and modeled. This bit here, I'm going to be painting orange just because it's like a snail kind of thing coming up out of the ooze. That's the story behind it that I just made up. And I'm going to do that next. The orange doesn't cover very well, but I think that's okay because this is basically oozy. Not an Uzi like an Uzi gun, but Uzi like an OOZ, ooze, E. Thanks for the raid and for joining in. If you are enjoying this relaxing painting, and it is actually kind of relaxing today. Some days it's not that relaxing because things go wrong. But today, there's only been 3 things that have gone wrong, only one of which was of any serious consequence. Yeah, you are welcome to become a follower and a subscriber and even a patron. I don't know how this orange paint's going to work. We're going to find out. And after I get this on, we can go back to the cultists and get the wash on them, finish those up, and then can come back to this if there's still time. And I've got some pearlescent paint that I think will give it the effect of looking slimy. If not, it'll just look shiny. Anyway, it's what I'm going to do, and I hope it works out okay. It's been fairly relaxing to paint because it's been, this is a low stress kind of thing right here because there's not much detail on it. It's basically just ooze. At least that's what it's supposed to be. And then there's a couple little things, some little like sucker things on the bottom here. I'm just going to highlight those in this orange as well. Just because just in case they show up, since it's on the 3D print. Yeah, let's let them be seen. So yeah, this is a failed print that turned into a thing that looks sort of interesting that may or may not pop up on our D&D campaign, because Dyson Dungeons is primarily a D&D stream. We stream our episodes with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And you can also catch that later. If you don't catch it on with the live chat, you can catch it on YouTube or as a podcast, because we're almost always saying something and there's music in the background. So listening to it is almost as good as watching it. Some might say that it's even better because then you don't have to see us. And this stream, the relaxing painting stream, all started because we were doing dungeon tiles and minifigs for our D&D stream, and I kind of like the uneven look of that. That requires a little bit of blue touch up. I'm going to just see if I can do that quickly. Hopefully the orange paint is dry enough, and this paint is still wet enough that I can just put a little bit on here. There. Yeah, so this was primarily doing dungeon tiles and minifigs for our stream, and decided, well, sometimes people like to watch paint dry, so why not? That's what we're doing here today, is putting paint on things. And this particular thing is an ooze thing in the sewer that is there for we don't know why. But if you've got a failed print that looks sort of interesting, why not go with it? So this is going to dry. I think basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep my brush from being clean. This is going to dry, and then while that's drying, I'm going to go back to my cultists, which is what I started working on before the break, and put a wash on them, a dark gray wash, and a little bit of brown wash on the hands and face. While this comes off, it's over there. These come back and go over here. And I'm going to finish these yet on the stream today so that they are done. Yep. Some serious brush washing to do later. This one for the wash because it absorbs it pretty well. I need some brown wash for the hands and face. Need next to none of this, like that. And I want it really light. I don't want very much on the brush. So I'm going to touch it and then get most of it off. And what I'm doing is just highlighting the fingers and the facial features. I don't really want to darken it very much. I just want to be able to see the features in the print. Like that. So then it's not quite so bright, and you can see the fingers and the eyes and the nose. There, that's that. That's all that is. And now I'm going to use a dark gray wash and spread it all over the robes. Hopefully making it look kind of like, shadows in the folds of the robes. So, given the production quality of this, the one ring camera that's moving around, me behind the camera and all of this, you can tell that this is not a professional how-to kind of painting show at all. This is just relaxing painting with dice and dungeons as I prepare items for our D&D campaign. And recently on Wednesdays, I've been working on a 1960s vintage Renoir cutaway submarine model. And this is the real thing. These were produced. The model I'm working on was produced in the 1960s, and it is the same model I mean, not exactly, as I've said before, the same model I built when I was in grade school, but is the same as the model that I built when I was in grade school. I usually do this by just slopping it around, and when I do this by slopping it around, usually I'm able to get it into like the folds. And if not, I can come back and rebrush it. I'm trying to get it on there so it's fairly even, so the color shift you get by putting the wash on is fairly even around the model here. And I'll go back. I'm going to go back over it once I get kind of an even base coat, and then put a little bit more in the folds, because I want the folds to show. It's like dots on the top of it. I want the folds in the robes to end up showing. So I turned out, as it is, I am not a skilled or professional modeler or a skilled or professional painter. What I am is adequate enough to get these things ready to show on our stream. Pretty much what I'm just going for here is to keep this from looking real lifeless, but not too weird or streaky. It's one of the other characters in our D&D campaign is actually an artist and does amazing stuff with highlighting and shading and all sorts of things that I don't have the skill to do. But I can get these figures ready for the stream, and so this is one of the cultists, kind of before and after, and you can see how the wash does help the appearance, even if inexpertly applied. And once I'm done with these, I'm going to go back to the thing that we don't know what it is, but it's a thing that exists potentially in the sewers that we're going to be visiting. And I'm going to get out some pearlescent paints. And the purpose of the pearlescent paints is to make it look slimy by giving it kind of a glossy, shiny kind of surface. So it's supposed to end up, the intent is to make it just look kind of wet. And since it was a misprint to start with, I figure I can't really hurt it very much. And if it looks really awful, I mean, not awful, I want it to look awful because it's supposed to be a slime monster of some sort. I mean, if it doesn't look presentable, then I'll get the can of primer out and just respray it and try something else. So this is nearly done. Just trying to find the spots that I didn't touch before. And the only things that need to be done with this, and maybe I will just do that right away, is the base. And then this will be done. I want to make sure it's finished today. If I don't finish the weird slime thing, whatever it is, that's okay, because that has no purpose, really. Whereas this might be a character that we run into as we sojourn through the sewers. But usually there's a topic of discussion. I, go on about something like 1960s cartoons, or how TV antenna installers were put out of business by cable. Those have been things I've talked about in the past. If I'm dealing with a number of things like 24 sewer tiles, I'll go on and talk about the perception of different numbers. Today, I've been talking about how I am not permitted to have buttons. Our DM, who's also the technician who puts together this studio as it is, decided that after I messed up one day, because there was like a button and I know I pushed the right one, but apparently I didn't, that because of that, I'm not permitted to have buttons on the Stream Deck here. So I've got like a number 1 button, which means push this first, and a start break button that turns into an end break button. I'm not even permitted to have 2 buttons, one for starting and one for ending. Been chatting about what other kinds of buttons I might be permitted to have. And I'm really looking forward to getting an OO button. And the OO button would be the button that I would push when something happened, like if I spilled paint or stuck my finger in something that I shouldn't have, or when I was painting the daggers with a brush that was too big, going, uh-oh, I made a mess. And since the Stream Deck is way on the other side of the workbench, that makes it even better, because as I'm reaching over to push the OO button, I'm very likely to knock something over or spill something. So it makes the labeling of it an OO button even more. Paint on the stirring thing just doesn't mix as well as it should. So this gets to be done in kind of a hurry. This paint gets darker as it dries. It dries pretty quickly. And then I like to put a blobby coat of brown wash on it, so that it has just a little appearance of texture, as opposed to just the flat brown color. Even though it's a very nice brown, it is pretty boring. And so I throw a little bit of brown wash on, basically dabbing it on to make it look uneven. And it helps it a little bit. These guys are cultists of some sort. At least that's what we're calling them in the campaign. We didn't run into them, we ran into their after effects. At least that's what we suspect. Where there was like a bloody dagger. This was many episodes away. There was a bloody dagger, some sort of magic that disguised what was really going on. so that if you just came down onto it, you wouldn't see it. So we called it a murder cult because it looked like there was some sort of, anyway, there was a bloody dagger and some blood. There were also these runes written on the wall that when you looked at them, they caused psychic damage. So that was kind of interesting. It's like, why, who and what or how would something be writing runes that could cause psychic damage and then, putting them on the walls? So we figured that was part of what the cult did, that they used the runes in whatever it was they were doing. So we just kept referring to it as the murder cult in the sewers. And we didn't know. I mean, we still don't know. We don't know if there were really, whether a murder was going on or whether it was, just expired blood from the blood bank or, maybe refuse from a abattoir where they were preparing meats. We don't know if it's a cult or not. We just called it a cult. That might not be an appropriate label for it. So we just made this stuff up because we don't really know for sure. But what we are afraid of is that we are encountering them once again in another location. So anyway, I'm calling these cultists because they apparently will become players. D&D days. Oh, well, I could talk about that. Yeah, I'm a historical figure in Dungeons and Dragons. We went to graduate school in Madison, Wisconsin in the 1970s. And when Dungeons and Dragons actually started becoming a thing, I was on the camera crew. Okay, cable had just started. This was what, like in 1974, maybe, or five? Cable was just a thing, and there were always these public access channels, right? You had to have public access channels. Well, some people got hold of the public access channel on, it was either Friday or Saturday night, starting like from 10 to midnight. It was kind of late. And we did a Dungeons and Dragons stream. Actually, it wasn't a stream then. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a cable cast on the public access cable channel. And I was a camera person. We had two cameras. That was pretty classy instead of just one. And the only die that was used back then was a D20. And, rolling that on a public access cable cast wouldn't be very interesting. So they created a spinner, like a Wheel of Fortune kind of thing. And that was the D20. So when it came time to roll the D20, just gave it a spin. D&D was much simpler back then. Basically, you created a character and you ran into a bunch of gnolls. And then if you actually leveled up, maybe a couple of hobgoblins or goblins or something. It was you sat around in a tavern, met your group, wandered around, fought some monsters, got a little bit of treasure, maybe, depending on what the DM did. Ordered pizza. So yeah, in some ways, this is a real retro thing for me now, where I'm involved in streaming a D&D campaign. Like almost 50 years after I was involved in one of the very first cable casts of a D&D campaign, before that was even a thing. And then after what, you know, afterwards, it was like around 12:30 or something. Just about a block away was a bakery, and they were turning out the donuts for the next day. So it wasn't unusual to wander over there and pick up some donuts, and yeah, it's kind of fun. It was fun doing that. Now, in our campaign, you know, we talk about food a lot, and this is really weird. I just have to say this, that in our campaign, this is a Dungeons and Dragons thing, right? We're playing that. We have not ever had snacks on the table. I mean, not that we want to get into like trademarking or copywriting or anything like that, but there's been no snacks ever on the table. We talk a lot about food. We talk about pretzels and croissants and all sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, all this sort of professional, what is a critical role or something, right? Where they actually make money, or did until they stopped doing their D&D campaign. I don't think they didn't have snacks. Maybe that's why. Maybe we're trying to emulate them. But I think, I don't know, maybe people would take us more seriously as D&D gamers if we were eating something, even if it weren't identifiable as a specific brand of a specific snack. Like maybe some popcorn, or maybe even pretzels, like little pretzel sticks or something. Let's see, there's like 15 minutes left. I think these are dry enough to touch. I need to take these off of their stands because I need to use the stand to get the glossy, slimy stuff on the slimy sewer monster thing. So I'm going to, this might be an oh moment. We'll see. I want to grab it underneath, pull it off like that, because the base is still very wet. There, well, they're off. And so, my this thing, put it on here. And what I'm going to be putting on here is the stuff that I wasn't planning to use. And so it's buried under many things. It is one of these pearlescent paints. And I want to use I decided I was going to use the dark green. That seemed to be appropriate. What color was I going to use? Pearl red? Maybe this one on the little tail thing. So we'll see. I'm going to give this a really good stir. Boy, this whole thing is screwed up. I've got another one somewhere. I don't know. This stuff is really viscous. It doesn't really mix very well. Getting a good disco effect here, rave effect. Okay, I'm going to take one of these well used, and I'm going to pick one of these wells and clean it out. Or clean enough. And I'm going to squeeze some of this in here, and I'm going to start spreading it on the goo monster. And I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. It'll either look really amazing, or it'll look otherwise. Let's find out. I'm using dark green, which is not at all the color it is here, but shiny. At least that's getting that. I'm glad I used this instead of blue. Base colors showing through okay. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a thing. It's a slimy sewer dwelling thing that is now shiny in many places. Squeezed out like way more than I needed. As you can see, this stuff is very thick. Viscous thick, but it doesn't cover it well. When I first started using it, I discovered that if you want to use it as a paint, you can't really use it as a primary coat because it doesn't cover. But it makes a good wash or glaze, I guess I'll call it in this case. It's a little uneven, but I think that's part of the charm of this thing. Excuse me. Okay. There, it's now shiny. See if I can get this out of the brush. I'm going to clean out this one. I'm going to make sure that's the color I wanted to use. Or a chart. I want to use red copper. That's not what this is. What is this? Pearl red. Just pearl red. Read the second line, right, won't you? This is going on the part here where it's coming up out of the sewer. Like where it's emerging. And again, I'm deliberately attempting to not have it go on evenly. But also not all over the place where I didn't want it. That's what happens when you use a big brush like this, is sometimes you don't have the level of control that one might want. So I'm going to, oh, that's a nice effect. I like the color. I'm going to stop using this large brush because that's not working very well. I'm going to use a smaller brush. And get it kind of where I want it and not where I don't. There's some spots under here that need that kind of highlighting. Just kind of like that, just a little bit that I couldn't do that with the big brush. And then there's like these frills along the side here that I just want to touch with this color. Not necessarily real accurately, but just so that it picks it out. You could see that they're there. See, there's a couple of little spines right at the top here, and I'm just going to paint those this color as well. I was thinking of getting out a different color, but I don't really feel like messing around with yet more colors. There's no room in the well. The brushes are dirty. Okay, so let's take a look at this slime monster thing, whatever it is. This is a thing in the sewer. Yeah, I mean it looks like slimy. I think the shininess is working okay on this. It's kind of mottled, a little uneven. That's kind of the point of it. I like the way this copper thing on the back turned out. I'm gonna have to remember that combination is that copper over orange. That looks really good. I wonder, that could be used for something more serious sometime. So the thing from the place in the sewer or whatever is this is done now. Yep, it's done just in time because we're wrapping up to around 2ish, which is where I usually finish, somewhere between 5:02 and 15 after. Oftentimes going a little bit over, but there. This is going to be our conclusion to relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons today. Went on Monday, and you can't see them really well from the top down, but these are the cultists I painted today. And you can compare that to the cultist I painted several weeks ago. I think I got the colors the same. So we got these cultists done. Earlier today, I finished a couple of other cultists that had curvy blades, but then I also very quickly managed to create a thing from the misprint 3D printer. So there. I'm hoping it's friendly. I'm hoping that it will like emerge out of the sewers and we'll meet it and it will go, hello, I am your friendly guide. I am going to take you through the sewer and protect you from all enemies, foreign and domestic. You know, that kind of thing. You think that'll happen? Yeah, maybe not. Looks kind of, I mean, yeah, I mean, it could be friendly. Could be. We'll find out if it shows up in our campaign. I don't know if it will. It may or may not have a place. If it does, we'll find out if it's friend or foe. So those of you who did, thank you for joining another stream of Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from more or less 10 until more or less 2, with a more or less 25-minute break halfway through. On Wednesday, will be Submarine Wednesday again, and I'll be going back to the 1960s vintage Renwall cutaway Polaris launching George Washington nuclear prototype submarine, where I'm making very, very slow progress, but, you know, making progress. The same, the same type of kit that I built originally when it came out in the 1960s. And I remember that just being a whole lot easier and faster than this, probably because I wasn't paying attention to detail. And instead of very carefully filing down and sanding the parts so that they fit and didn't show mold marks, I think I just scraped them off and put enough cement on so they melted together. But be that as it may, Submarine Wednesday coming up, and then on Friday I will be going back to minifigs. I've got a couple of interesting things to do, including one that is important to the stream, which is one of our NPC characters recurring in the stream that we're looking forward to meeting again, maybe if we go into the sewers. Thank you if you're a follower. Thank you very much if you're a subscriber. Thank you extremely much if you are willing to become a patron. Patreon.com/diceanddungeons. So have a good rest of the day, and I will see you Wednesday at around 10 Eastern Daylight Time. Thanks.